Hey everyone, my name is and I'm the co-founder of Prehook, which is a quiz builder for Shopify stores. That's just a little bit of context on why I'm talking about a quiz. And I realize now this is like kind of in preparation for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and how you can maximize sales there. But what I do want to, so this is not necessarily like how you can help grow for this Black Friday, but it's more about a strategic initiative to help get more customer feedback and kind of position yourself in a way to differentiate from the competition. So it has long-term benefits. And so what I want to talk about is really how quizzes can help drive a massive return on investment, where the outcomes are relatively straightforward. We're talking about lowering your customer acquisition costs, increasing your average order value, more repeat customers, and ultimately, as you get more repeat customers and more revenue per order, that's an increase in lifetime value. And it all comes down to what I'm proposing is just a simple e-commerce quiz. So I want to share a few examples, why I think they're important, why I think that they're a fantastic tool. It is popular with e-commerce brands, and in particular, kind of like a de facto tool for some e-commerce niches, but I think they're highly underutilized, and so I highly recommend using or considering a quiz as your tool, ultimately as a method to gather important customer information and then giving it back to customers in a way that's more tailored, more personalized, and helps you stand out from the competition. So if I can just give a quick introduction here. So yeah, like I said, my name is Gen, and I 10 years in e-commerce experience. I started at a private equity firm working with some of the portfolio companies, Supra, skateboard shoes, Paula's Choice, skincare, as an example. Then I moved to Amazon SaaS tools as leading the marketing team at Jungle Scout. I was there for under 4 years and really was like, got a really interesting bird's eye view on how people were leveraging the Amazon component of e-commerce. And then about a year ago, I started doing consulting for B2B SaaS companies to help reduce churn with an agency called Retainable that I started. And leading marketing at Jungle Scout, churn was always a big issue just by the nature of a recurring revenue business, a SaaS business. Churn is always something that you want to be aware of. And so that's why I set out to help other B2B SaaS companies reduce their churn. And really what that came down to was tactically improving the onboarding experience, that helping B2B SaaS companies understand what problem they're solving for, and then helping their customers get to that point, to that, what you can call an aha moment or an activation moment as fast as possible. And what I realized is that e-commerce brands don't necessarily have that as well. You might consider your own customer base, and there might be 3 to 5 different customer personas, high-level personas, but the details of what that customer is looking for in terms of what their goals are, what problems they're facing, what alternatives they've tried, it's hard to gather. And so that's when I realized that there was an opportunity to help merchants and e-commerce brands understand what the problems that they're solving for, and help them in a way that can flow through the information gathered at the very early point. We can call it, like the onboarding point, can flow through to different channels and throughout the customer journey. So that's what I'd like to discuss at a high level today. Natalie, so I don't know if there are questions that come in. I am happy to answer questions, and then I'll make sure that we do leave time at the end, sufficient time to answer questions. But
we don't have any questions just yet. So for everyone watching this, if you have any questions, drop it in the chat or in the Q&A section.
Awesome. And then, of course, my email, if this is a recording that you're watching, is just Gen, Gen, @prehook.com. I love to talk about quizzes, marketing, growth, e-commerce, so please reach out. So this is Danny Meyer. Danny Meyer is a CEO of Union Square Hospitality Group, obviously not an e-commerce brand or anything related to it. But what he says is really interesting. He's kind of known, he's created this persona that he is the person for like a warm welcome in the hospitality business. And he says business, like life, is all about how you make people feel. It's that simple and it's that hard. And So if you go to his restaurants, and these are some of the best restaurants in New York City, 11 Madison Park or Union Square Cafe, Shake Shack, which you might have by you. And he gives everybody a very personalized experience where you don't feel like you're going to a restaurant, but you actually feel like you're there. You're almost like at a friend's house. One interesting anecdote is that he actually gave iWatches to every one of his managers and sommeliers at Union Square Cafe. And that iWatch was connected to the CRM, which had a transaction, a list, a history of what the person ordered, what they liked, what they didn't, any conversation. And so that was kind of like a nice entry point to use technology to help humanize the experience of eating at a restaurant. And so as you might imagine, that leads to a better feeling, a stronger emotional connection. People go back there more often. They might order things that are recommended, which coincidentally would increase the bill at the end. But he doesn't do it to drive revenue. He does it to create this personalized connection. And so I use this as an example because I think it is applicable in the strategy and the approach to handling customers. And if we're talking about e-commerce, these aren't customers yet. They're just maybe at the top of the funnel, learning about your brand in particular, or even the problem at a high level. And so finding one bridge between what your customer is looking for, where they are, and then where they want to go is incredibly important. And that's what a quiz can do. It can help bridge that gap. So yeah, at a high level, I mentioned that a quiz can drive a massive return on investment. So we're talking more leads. The average, I looked it up recently, the average opt-in of a pop-up is 1% to 5%. For quizzes, it's anywhere from 50, 60% with a 90% completion rate. So far more people are willing to engage with a quiz because there is a quid pro quo aspect, as in you give some basic information, and depending on the quiz, it can be very personal and just almost invasive in terms of the level of personal detail revealed. But in return, there's something of equal and immediate value on the other end, which is something that you don't necessarily get with, say, an ebook or a newsletter or something. So the return is more immediate and people are willing to engage. Plus, it naturally piques this human interest in learning more about ourselves and the curiosity that we have about what we don't know. And so that's where quizzes can help gather more leads. And because we're gathering important information right there in terms of, I'll show you some examples later, things that are important and relevant to the moment, to the reason why people are on your site at that point, you're able to provide products that make sense to them. So you're able to create a relevant product recommendation, which leads to an increased conversion rate. And then therefore, you can upsell with more relevancy, which leads to average order value. And then, like I said, lifetime value over time. So let's get into, this is an interesting slide, I think, of why quizzes are important. So you might be familiar with third-party data, for example, which is inferred from external parties. Think Google's interests and behaviors or life events, things that Facebook and Google might take from different activity, but it's essentially aggregated data. Second-party data is someone else's first-party data, first-party data being inferred data from their transaction history or their location, which is inferred from their billing zip or their shipping zip. But where quizzes are really interesting and where I think that they define themselves in the future of personalization in e-commerce is that quizzes represent zero-party data. And so this is a graph that I think lays out nicely where zero-party data fits in terms of hierarchy. And so this is done by Cheetah Digital. And, by the way, thank you to Jebbit for sponsoring as well. Jebbit has a term they call declared data, which is data that is shared willingly and explicitly by consumers. And so ultimately, you're able to get towards what a shopper's motivations are, what their interests are, what their preferences are, and ultimately, like what their intentions are. And once you have that and you're able to contextualize the reason that the person is on the site, you're able to create a far more compelling offer and pitch, as opposed to inferred from third party, second party, or first party data. And ultimately, this leads to a personalized messaging, and you're playing to the preferences of this person. So the relevancy is far higher, which leads to higher sales. So everybody knows Seth Godin, but he says, marketing is our quest to change on behalf of those we serve. And you do it by understanding what the forces are for each person. Everybody has their own problems, their own goals. And the quiz is what is really important to help you understand what problem you're solving for. And I think that's where, the challenge for me as a marketer is like, all right, who is it that I'm solving for? And you kind of create these personas or segments, and there's a lot of assumptions baked in, but it would be far more colorful, and the stories that you can tell are far more powerful if you know exactly what it is that you're solving for. So here's just a quick summary of like what this is. I'll go into more details in terms of the funnel later, but these are from different quizzes, and I think that they all get to the point of like, first you learn about the customer. So this first step is from Sundays is for Dogs. They have a consultation, so you can really personalize it. They start out with, what's your dog's name? It's a dog food company. So this flows through. All right, then it becomes a very conversational thing. You learn about their preferences. So this is from Trade Coffee. How do you like their coffee? Trade Coffee is a subscription e-commerce coffee brand. And so the data that they're gathering on how people like to drink their coffee is incredibly important for the products that they're sending on a monthly or bi-weekly basis, because the quiz answers here inform the products that they're selling or they're shipping, which is directly correlated to the customer experience and happiness, how much people are enjoying the coffee that they're drinking. Because I personally, for example, hate a dark roast, and they're able to gather this at the very beginning from the preferences. Of course, the contact information is vital. I think that it's a best practice to have a skippable quiz, a skippable email, because not everybody wants to go through the experience of having the analysis at the end, the prize that they went through the quiz to receive held hostage by an email. But regardless, capturing an email or SMS is incredibly important. And then it leads towards, the prize at the end. In this case, I put down it's a recommended product. If it's Stellar Shave Club, it could be any number of things, which we'll get into. And so I'd like to show you just a few examples of quizzes and how I think that they are very versatile, and their use cases are very varied. So there's Warby Parker, which is a fit quiz. 5 questions: what type of your face do you have? What your preferences are in terms of like black material or metal or acetate or whatever. And then at the end, it will give you a handful of products. So the reason why Warby Parker is very helpful is because if you've ever walked into a Warby Parker store, it's walls of glasses, and that becomes a little bit intimidating, and then you have to try them on. And so the Fit Finder, the product recommendation finder, is really a nice way to take a large number of SKUs, narrow it down very quickly, and then therefore it just makes the customer experience far easier, and the likelihood of adding to a cart and purchase far better. Product Creator Pros, these are more sophisticated. There's a lot behind them in terms of how it ties in with manufacturing and operations, but Pros is a personalized shampoo brand. So it asks what type of hair you have, how often you're washing your hair, what your likes are, or the smells you like, and then it will recommend or create a shampoo specifically for you. Third Love is a little bit similar to Warby Parker, but Third Love kind of was a pioneer of the quiz because bra fitting was a challenge that the founder, Heidi Zak, identified. And so she realized that half sizes were something that a lot of people wanted but couldn't find. And so the quiz was a great way to mimic the in-person experience and the discomfort of going in person, but in a way that's very fast. People are far less hesitant to do it online, and it's far more scalable, especially now in coronavirus where people are forced to do things remotely. Fenty is just one example. It's relatively famous because it's a brand from Rihanna, but skin tone matching is important. And where that also is something that's often done in person, where you people have infinite numbers of skin tones and need a foundation to match that. And so a quiz is one way to pair the right product to the variety of nuances and preferences that a consumer might have. Gainful, again, product development specific to your needs. Health consultation. So Smile Direct Club is one interesting example of how you can kind of like qualify your shoppers beforehand. I'll kind of like skip through these. I don't want to go through all of them in the interest of time. But my point here is that there are a wide breadth of use cases, and a quiz is not limited to any particular niche or industry. And it gets back to the point of a quiz is a tool to help you learn more about your customer's needs directly from your customer. And I think that that's where they are incredibly powerful. So this is, I'd like to just show kind of like as an example of how they are also versatile in terms of their application. So Warby Parker, for example, you take the quiz, the 5-question fit finder quiz, and then all of a sudden Warby Parker is armed with all of this information based on what my preferences are. So they know the exact SKU and fit that was right for me, and they're able to use that, package it up in, say, Facebook remarketing or email or SMS. So the quiz is kind of like the wellspring of customer data. And what you want to do is ultimately integrate with, say, your Klaviyo or your ads manager so that you're able to inform and create really targeted real-time ads and offers based on what people are saying in the quiz. Customers are looking for a more personalized experience, and they're more willing and likely to pay attention to a message that is relevant to them, and they're more likely to take action based on that. So customers expect a personalized experience. They get frustrated when they don't have it. They're willing to share whatever you need in order to make it happen, and they'll pay more. They'll have more repeat purchases. But, and this is the rub, a lot of marketers are not doing it. 89% are not offering a personalized experience. So if you can be one of the few that actually do have a really compelling personalized pitch to your customers, that all of a sudden is a differentiator, and that's kind of like what the customers are asking for. And that's where the customer experience gap is. So again, the personalization, it is a buzzword, but the personalized strategy is really only as good as the data that you're feeding it. You might have heard the term garbage in, garbage out. If you're feeding the personalization based on, again, third-party data that's inferred from their Facebook activity or their network of friends or their traffic behavior, that's not nearly as powerful as them directly and willingly saying that this is what I want. So when I was talking about the versatility of quizzes, one thing that I do want to mention is that they are helpful and useful at every stage of the funnel. So the top funnel, middle, and bottom. And so that's kind of what I want to just touch on quickly here. We have, 7 minutes. So at the top of the funnel, just a few things, and I did capture this before, but the main goal is to capture leads and educate customers. What you're trying to help introduce your brand to the shopper. It starts, at this point of education, and the quiz is really good because you can capture an email, and then not only are you carrying forward the conversation by email, but again, you can use multiple channels like I was showing before, SMS, Facebook Messenger, etc. But at the top of the funnel, you're basically able to strategically ask what you're looking for. So Hydrant, for example, is a drink brand. And so what are the preferences that you like? Who's actually going to be drinking from these things? Beard brand is a men's grooming brand. They have a very light and kind of on-brand quiz, what they're calling the personality quiz. And then Nerks is an educational quiz. Each of these is just a kind of like a fun, whimsical way to engage. Hydrant is more focused on the conversion than others, just because there is a recommended product based on the answers in the quiz. But it captures the email, and that's the most important thing, because then you're only going to get, again, on average, 2% of website visitors to convert. You can carry forward the conversation in other channels, but you're getting so much richer of a customer profile from the quiz that you're having it at the top of the funnel. Now to the middle of the funnel, This is your recommendation quiz. I think so. This quiz here under the recommendation quiz is from Helix Sleep. Helix is selling mattresses from $700 to $1,000, high average order value. You're not going to get a lot of repeat purchases. So they have a very well done quiz, but it asks things like who's using the mattress, what kind of mattress, firm, soft, what size, king, queen, twin. And so in this 5-step quiz, they're able to gather these things and then imagine how much more powerful their marketing can be as opposed to, oh, hey, you opted into this ebook on how to sleep better, and here's any number of things. After you go through this quiz, you're given a very specific, a beautifully optimized recommendation page with one product that works for you based on your preferences and a great product page on why you should do it. Fit Finder and consultation, we kind of went through these before, but at the middle of the funnel, you're trying to address objections, answer any questions, and hopefully address maybe some competitors and alternatives. And again, I think that's where Helix helps, because if you're buying a mattress online, it might be hard to understand how the features actually are, how they're different, how it's different from a customer mattress. And so there's a lot of color that you can add from a quiz. And so lastly, at the bottom of the funnel, this is more conversion focused. And this add to cart quiz, very quick. It's from Billy, which is women's razors. But you're just boom, 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 couple questions. And then this is a product that makes sense for you. Where I think Billy does a great job is that they actually offer a subscription service, which again, when we talk about what the impact on lifetime value down the line is, obviously you're going to get far higher lifetime value from a recurring subscription as opposed to one-time purchases where you need to kind of work on reorders or upsells. And then last, I do want to mention the product builder. This is Pros, but they're just really cool. Pros does one, the Farmer's Dog for dog food, Gainful for protein, but Wink for wine. I think this is where some brands are doing some really cool things in terms of gathering data and then also on the back end after customers purchase their feedback on the product and then creating products from that. So the last slide, I think that personalization is going to be a competitive advantage. It already is. And I think that where you get to a really amazing personalized experience is from the data that you're gathering from a quiz. So this might be a lot to digest. I apologize that I did kind of go through this fast, but there's a lot in 30 minutes and I wanted to make sure I get through it. But starting small, I think, is one great way. And so one of the examples I had in here was actually just a text-based quiz, but you can use a quiz, so it doesn't need to be a very elaborate or enterprise software solution. We're building a solution specifically for Shopify products to integrate deeply with Shopify and the other tech stack that many e-commerce marketers use. But starting small and focusing on the customer experience of one of your most important segments, whatever that might be, and improving that, and then scaling out and expanding from there. And then the last point is just to be strategic, that it's about the customer experience in the end and not the tool. So you're not going to be limited by the tools and technology, but that if you just take the customer first approach, that you can do a lot with that. So with that said, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. And if you have any questions, please email me again at prehook.com.